Check podcasts. Hi, welcome to Chamber Chats. I'm Bruce Williams. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce, and this program is brought to you with the support of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union. I'd like to begin, as always, by acknowledging that I live and work on the ancestral territories of the Lekwungen-speaking nations, Songhees and Esquimalt, and it's our pleasure and honor to live and work alongside them every day. On these Chamber Chats, we're going to start doing things where we talk to people and their companies because they just do really cool things. They're really interesting, really neat. Both of them today are based in a strong business case, but they also have a very strong environmental base. We're going to talk in a couple of minutes about less fruit flies under your kitchen sink with your compost. But first, in the world of construction, we very often see those really cool videos where a building collapses and there's smoke and stuff. That doesn't really work anymore. If you're going to construct or build something, afterwards you need to unbuild it and salvage what's inside. We're going to talk about that right now with a gentleman named Adam Corneal, who's one of the founders of a company called Unbuilders Deconstruction. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Bruce.
So let's do this thing where you run into a complete stranger and they say, "Hey, Adam, what do you do?" What's your answer?
So we are a deconstruction company, which is challenging the traditional demolition model of removing a building, in which we separate a building layer by layer to maximize the amount of materials we can salvage. What can't be salvaged is recycled, and at the end, we're left with waste. So we're trying to maximize salvage, minimize the waste, and do so in a timely and cost-effective manner.
So without this being too obvious, why is this such a great thing? Because it is, but what's the upside to this?
There's several upsides. So the first and most obvious one is the environmental impact. The construction demolition sector generates roughly 40% of our solid waste in Canada. So 40% of the materials that go to our landfill are from construction and demolition. So it's the number one contributor to our landfills. So that waste goes to landfill, decomposes into methane, which becomes which adds to climate change. So it's contributing significantly to climate change. On top of it, the materials that we recover, primarily the lumber, is of quite high value. So most of the lumber we recover, anything 1970 or earlier, is old growth lumber. So it's of high value. So we're literally throwing out highly valuable materials. But then there's several other offshoots of positive impacts, from the community to social impact. We're partnered with two charities, the Reuse People of Canada and Habitat for Humanity. And when we donate materials to them, they use the proceeds through the sale of those materials to build affordable housing. So there's also that community aspect. And then lastly, there's financial aspect, which we have unique business models to try to compete directly with traditional demolition, so that for the most part, the homeowner, whether they're doing a donation or they're doing it as an acquisition job, they're not spending much more than demolition while still getting all these positive benefits.
Yeah, so I can imagine people right now are kind of running through their minds trying to imagine the disassembling or the unconstruction of a building. You're actually working on one across the street from our office on 4th Street.
Yeah.
So take me through that. So you walk into a space and you look around. Where do you start? And explain the removal of those layers to me.
Residential and commercial buildings are sort of two different ball games. Residential, if we look at sort of the date of the build and a picture of the outside, we can know within sort of 95% what that building's composed of. They're relatively the same within the region. And it's interesting because Victoria homes are a little bit different than Vancouver homes, even though we're right there.
Really?
Commercial
In
buildings.
What way?
We just see, number one, the lumber, like the really tight grain old growth lumber, seems to have continued as dimensional lumber on the island longer. So we're seeing like really nice old growth, still even rough sawn into like the 70s and 80s on the island. Whereas in Vancouver, it stopped being rough sawn in 1945 to 1950. And certainly by 1975, it was no longer old growth, it was second growth. So for the most part, it looks like the lumber is a bit better on the island. I think the Lower Mainland was clear cut and logged sooner. So that explains why that's the case.
Yeah, well, everything's better on the island. I think we all know that, but we're not really here to talk about that. So, yeah, okay, so let's say you walk into a building like the one across the street from us, probably drywall, right? There's drywall on the walls, rather, or plaster. What do you do first?
So it's really reverse engineering the build process. So the first thing we do, it depends on where the asbestos is. If the drywall is clean, doesn't have asbestos, then the first thing we do is we do the initial salvage. So we strip out all the finishes. We take out the cabinets, the appliances, the flooring, the base and case, windows or not windows, the doors, the interior doors. Basically, get that thing back to the shell, and and then at that point, our walls are all clear. The next stage would be strip back the drywall, the insulation, and the utilities. And then from that point, we're moving to the outside where we're going to work top to bottom, aside from another layer of salvage. So then we take out the windows, we take out the doors, and then we start on the roof and work our way down to the foundation from there.
Is there anything you can do with drywall? Is it recyclable in any way?
It's 100% recyclable,
Cool.
or 99%. Drywall is really just gypsum and paper. So there's an organization in the Lower Mainland, New West Gypsum. They are the biggest gypsum recycler in the world, and I think it's about 30% of the content of new drywall is from recycled drywall. So yeah, it's 100% recycled.
When you talk about windows and doors that involve glass, very often we see that residential glass recycling is often suspended because there's nowhere to take the glass. What do you do with the glass that you come across?
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge to make deconstruction viable in different regions is the supply or the outlets for the materials. So in the Lower Mainland, there's a company that takes the glass for recycling. They use it for glass blasting. On the island, there is no outlet for it. So unfortunately, it goes to the landfill. So this is part of, as we not only look to grow our business, but really look to influence deconstruction in general. One of the hurdles to overcome is the regional supply outlets for these materials. The windows, the ones we can salvage are salvaged, and they're either donated or sold. But there's, probably 50% of our projects, the windows are not salvageable. They're not really of value. They have metal frames or, they're just too old. They've broken seals or whatever. So unfortunately, in Victoria right now, that is going to the landfill.
Okay. Next, I want to talk more about that beautiful old growth wood that you're talking about. On Chamber Chats today, we're having a conversation with a couple of companies that are doing green things, but very interesting and innovative and cool things. Talking with Adam Corneal right now, the founder of Unbuilders Deconstruction. So you've got a room or a building where you've basically taken it down to the studs, right? Everything's off, the windows, everything. Then what do you do?
That's where the unbuilding starts. So we start from the top down. So we're going to be stripping off the roof, and then we peel back the roof strapping, the roof trusses, and then get into the top floor. And we typically bring the walls in. We collapse them in on the building, and then we strip them when they're laying flat. So then we take the shiplap off, we separate the studs, and we work our way down. And this lumber is it's much nicer, much higher quality than the lumber we see today coming out of the forests and the mills, and that's because it's old growth. And especially in an area like Vancouver Island, which in the last 12 months has seen unprecedented protests for old growth logging. The irony is we are, on the one hand, opposing old growth logging. I'm saying we in terms of the community. And at the same time, we're overflowing our landfills with old growth lumber from demolition.
A lot of that wood's going to have nails in it. What do you do about that?
We remove the nails by hand. So the material typically comes back to our processing yard, and we denail it if it's going to go in for a finished product. So if it's like a post or beam or a floor joist that typically are going to get run through a wood shop, we will scan it with metal detectors to ensure we get it all out. If it's something like a 2x4, we just can't go to that level, or we'll never recover our money from that 2x4. So it depends on the material. But yeah, that's removed by hand. Something we dream of having automated in the future.
So the wood itself then, when you take it out of the building, whatever age it might be, you repurpose it, or you make sure that it's in the hands of people that can repurpose it. Do you plane it? Do you sand it? What do you do with it?
So we have a second brand, a second company called Heritage Lumber, and that's what that business is about. So we receive the materials from Unbuilders, also from other demolition contractors. We denail it, we cut it to size, we cut out any of the rot or cracked parts of it, and then when we sell it, we either sell it as a raw material, but where the company is moving towards in the very near future is a product line. So we will run the materials through our wood shop, whether it's going to go through a drum sander or a planer, and then we're making a variety of building products from it once it's processed.
Yeah. Who buys it?
At the moment, it's a combination of wood shops who are buying the raw material to do it themselves. We also sell to architects, designers, a lot of do-it-yourselfers, and builders and developers as well.
So if I'm looking to build a really cool coffee table or something, I can contact you and look at getting the wood from you.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. So the stuff that does go to the landfill is not very significant by the sounds of it, but whatever does go there is then processed through the facility at Heartland or wherever it might be. How much more can this expand? Where do you see the future growth in this?
I mean, we see that demolition is going to get replaced by deconstruction. The writing's on the wall. There's Victoria is pushing through a bylaw, a soft launch in July. It's going to take effect fully in January of next year. Vancouver already has a bylaw in place. There's several cities in the US that already have policy in place that mandates deconstruction. And what will follow is also a mandate on a certain percentage of materials in new construction to be from reclaimed, reused sources. So for me, I feel like we're at this pinnacle. We're very early in the process. That is strategic. We foresaw this was going to be coming, and that's why we launched the business when we did. But it's sort of that point when drywall replaced plaster for it was a very quick couple year span, and all of a sudden there was no more plasterers. That trade had completely shifted to become drywallers. I fully believe that we're at that point over the next 5 to 10 years, depending on the region, where deconstruction will replace demolition for the most part. There's certain buildings that will always need to be demolished, whether they're the concrete construction or they're newer homes can't be deconstructed, the frames. So there's always going to be some demolition happening, but the vast majority of the buildings should be deconstructed. That's where this is going.
You sound like a guy who creates a lot of jobs.
Yeah, we certainly have done so in the last 4 years. The Unbuilders, we're at 24 staff, and Heritage Lumber, we have 7. So we're just over 30 right now.
Yeah, because you're doing pretty intense work that, again, if you just swing a ball or a backhoe and knock a building down, you're not extracting all of that stuff out. So it's a little more labor intensive. It's amazing stuff. We'd like to reconnect with you in the future and talk more about this. Where can people find out more about your companies?
So you can look us up online. It's unbuilders.com and heritagelumber.ca.
And you can also connect with them through the Chamber website because they are a member in good standing of the Greater Victoria Chamber. Adam Corneal, thanks for your time today.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Next on Chamber Chats, we're going to help you with your fruit flies. Our conversation today on Chamber Chats is all about, first of all, these really neat companies doing interesting and cool things, which is not business language, but that's the way I describe this stuff. Most of us have a compost bin that's either under the sink or on your kitchen counter. It can get a little gamey after a while. You can suddenly find there's fruit flies around. There's a company in town that can help you with that, doing something that is simply ingenious. Christopher Moreno is the founder of a company called BinBreeze. Christopher, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much, Bruce. Good to be with you. And I'm actually the CFO at BinBreeze. So
you're the money guy.
And Taylor McCartan, our founder, is hard at work in Victoria today. So
cool. CFO, financial guy, financial ops. So same question I often ask. You meet a total stranger and they say, what do you do? What's your company all about? How do you answer that?
We take wood waste and natural minerals and we combine them to make a powder that is applied to compost bins as well as garbage to remove the smell and get rid of the fruit flies. That easy.
There it is. Okay. And it's amazing. No one's thought of this before, but good for you and the team for coming up with it. How did this whole thing start? What was, I guess it's the science behind it all. Where did that happen?
The whole thing started when Taylor, our founder, came home one weekend to his parents' home and walked over to their kitchen counter and opened up what was an absolutely disgusting compost bin in this beautiful manicured home. And he thought, this is not encouraging people to behave sustainably. It's uncomfortable. Why would people want to do this? There's got to be a better way. Yeah. And after about 4 or 5 failed attempts in an aquarium in his bedroom, he reached out to a professor at the University of Victoria, Harman Zylstra, our co-founder, and the two of them worked for several months to come up with a formula that utilized wood waste, because Taylor's father was a carpenter, and his grandfather was a carpenter, and he had seen wood waste, historically be burned, and that's what happens to most of it here in British Columbia. About 50% of wood that is not, utilized, it ends up as waste, and then in BC we have nowhere to store it, so it gets burned. So it was looking at a circular economy, an opportunity to take that wood waste and make a product out of it. And lo and behold, we found a way to eliminate 2 pain points at the same time.
Yeah. Or the wood can be unbuilt, as we just talked about, or unconstructed.
Absolutely.
So just in simplest of terms, it's like a powder, right?
Yeah.
And you buy it at grocery stores. You see it all the time.
Yeah, we are available in over 500 stores across Canada now. Canadian Tires, Home Hardwares, some Sobeys, Thrifties, all the London Drugs locations. You find it where you buy, your garbage and your compost cans. And it's a very simple process. You just take a couple tablespoons, put it in the bottom of the compost bin, throw your compost in, and maybe once a day add another tablespoon. And what you find is when you get to the end of 3 or 4 days or the week, depending on how long it takes you to fill your compost bin, no fruit flies, no smell, and you're actually improving the quality of the material that goes into the compost facility.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that in just a second. You know what drives me crazy is when you pick the stuff up out of the compost, or the bag up, and somehow it's ripped on the bottom. There's all that gunk that's fallen out that goes...
Right, we call that leachate, and that's the liquid. And so, not to get too sciencey on you, but that's happening because instead of the compost breaking down aerobically with air, it's breaking down anaerobically, and it's creating that methane gas that's actually emitting out of your compost bin. And that's one of the things that we also do. We eliminate a lot of methane being emitted from compost bins.
Oh, okay. We have cut flowers in our house sometimes, and it's one of the little stems that will puncture the thing too. That happens. But okay, so the wood, where does the wood come from? Where do you source that?
We source the wood waste from all over the place. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to call Adam after this and say, hey, when you're finishing off that wood and you are actually producing sawdust, give us a call because we can use it. We obtain it from all over the Lower Mainland and the island. We go to woodworking shops. We also deal with some sawmills, and they provide us with the wood waste, and then they don't have to burn it.
What's the science that eliminates the odor?
Well, that's basically that process where instead of the compost turning into sort of sticky mud, where the oxygen is not reaching the actual compost, and you get anaerobic decomposition, that's creating methane, the powder and the wood waste soak up all the extra liquid. And what happens now is you get aerobic decomposition, which is without methane and which is dry and which is much better for the environment and for your compost bin. You don't have that liquid running around everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. Full disclosure here and a warning. We're going to talk about fruit flies for a second. We don't bring them into the house. We don't breed them. I remember doing a high school science project about fruit flies. We're actually called Drosophila. But why do they just appear?
Very good.
Boom.
So there's actually a new invasive species of fruit fly, and that is an Asian species, and it actually has on its ovipositor on the back end, it actually has a saw, and it's actually capable of puncturing the outside membrane of the fruit and laying its eggs inside healthy fruit. So before the fruit starts to rot, that fruit fly has already laid its eggs. So what happens when you bring fruit home is you're actually bringing the fruit flies into your home because they're in the fruit. And that's why it doesn't really matter how much you keep your doors closed. If you bring fruit into your home, you're bringing fruit fly eggs or larvae into your home. And then generally they're actually crawling out of your compost bin and getting out into the rest of your home. So that was one of the things that we really wanted to target with the product.
So again, warning here. That means that when we eat the fruit, we're eating the fruit flies.
Yes, you are. That is absolutely true. But if you eat fresh blackberries, you're doing that all the time anyway. And we know the blackberries on the island are really good.
Okay. Yeah. Protein. Let's call it protein that we're consuming by doing that. Yeah. They come in, I'm going to get particular here. They come in different scents. different flavors, if you will. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we are always engaging with our customers. We love to get their feedback on the product. We started out with a lavender scent, which is one of the most popular scents we've ever had. There is an unscented version for sort of commercial applications or restaurants where we see the product being used and they already have a lot of scents. And I think right now our second scent is orange spice. There are 2 new scents coming out this spring. So we'll see what the customers have chosen, because that was sort of an online vote and a poll to see what they wanted to see. But yeah, we generally change up our scents about once every 6 months.
So another thought I've had as a guy who's spent a fair amount of time going to landfill sites from living in the country and taking things to the dump, if you will, there is that certain odor that goes around those facilities. Could this product that you have be done on a huge scale on a massive facility like Heartland?
You know, we are in the middle of discussions with some very large composting facilities, talking to them exactly about that, about an industrial application of our product, and even possibly a rollout where from the compost facility, customers in a very large geographical area are getting the product directly from their compost facility and helping to improve the quality of the compost and reduce the smell. So we participated in a large SDTC research project in the interior with a smaller composting facility, and they're getting back to us now with the data on how much methane and CO2 was reduced and what happened with the smell. So we'll see how that wraps up in about 2 months, and then we hope to do an even larger rollout, probably on the island and one on the mainland.
I know there's a lot of business minds that are watching and listening to this, wondering if Unbuilders and you at BinBreeze are going to do an IPO at any point, an initial public offering for investors. Is that coming up?
Do you know what? We are in the middle of a fundraising round right now, an equity round. It is not an IPO, but it is available for some shareholders. Listen, we love the product. We love how loyal our clients are. And we definitely want a way to get as many people involved in the company as possible. But they can always reach out to us with suggestions. We're happy to listen.
Yeah, and you're, of course, in regions beyond Vancouver Island, too. The product is out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we go as far as Newfoundland. I know for sure we have probably 10 stores in Halifax that are selling the product now. So, yeah, we are truly coast to coast, born and bred on Vancouver Island, but Canadian through and through.
Wow. Christopher Moreno is the CFO of BinBreeze. What a great story. And thanks for sharing that with us. We're going to follow along with your progress, and we'll catch up with you again in another future Chamber Chat. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
All right. And I am Bruce Williams, and that's it for Chamber Chats. See you for another one very soon.